It was a crisp Monday morning, the kind where everything felt like it might just go right until it didn't. I was halfway through sipping a lukewarm gas station coffee when I pulled into the lot behind my web design firm, XYZ Design. As I turned in, the car slammed to a stop. A silver Lexus was sitting squarely in my reserved spot. I blinked, then frowned. Two more vehicles I didn't recognize, one a blue Subaru Outback and the other a dented minivan with tinted windows filled additional spaces in our already limited private lot. My jaw clenched. I'd been working out of this building for 5 years and had never seen anything like this. Our lot had 12 spaces, barely enough for my staff. Seeing it occupied by strangers was not only frustrating, it was disruptive to our operations. I looped the lot once. Then again, no available spots, no way to reach anyone. Every square inch of concrete had been claimed. With a muttered curse, I swung back out onto the street and found a paid meter 5 blocks down. As I locked the car and fed the meter coins, I was already behind schedule. It wasn't how I wanted to start the week. Inside the office, Tanya, my uncheckable office manager, stood by the front desk with a coffee cup and a look of pure frustration. "Jason and Mia are circling the block," she said flatly. "There's nowhere to park." I rubbed my temple. "Who the hell parked in our lot?" She shook her head. "No idea, but I did notice a sign by the fence. Evergreen Property Management. Maybe give them a call?" I tossed my laptop bag on the desk and stood by the window, staring out at the unfamiliar cars like they were intruders on sacred ground. "All right, let's get to the bottom of this." I dialed the number on the sign. The phone rang 4 times before a bored-sounding receptionist picked up. "Evergreen Property Management, how can I help you?" I explained the situation. After some indifferent typing, she transferred me to someone named Doug. Doug sounded half asleep. "That'd be Pinecrest Gardens," he said after I gave him the address and situation. "They're repaving their visitor lot this week. Residents were told to use the lot next door temporarily." "You mean my lot?" I asked sharply. "Well, yes. The HOA board said they made arrangements with the business owner. Margaret Wilson handled it." My eyebrows shot up. "I am the business owner, and no one contacted me." "Huh," Doug said. I could hear him clicking his mouse. "That's strange. According to our notes, Margaret said she spoke with the building owner and it was fine." "There is no agreement," I said, my voice hardening. "This is private property." Doug hesitated. "Well, I guess I single quotes LL. Follow up with her. Maybe there was a miscommunication." I didn't wait around. Ending the call, I printed a dozen flyers and walked outside, slipping one under each windshield. "Greater than this lot is private property for XYZ Design employees and clients only. Please do not park here. Thank you for understanding." At that moment, I still believed being polite would work. By lunchtime, my patience wore thin. Jason returned from the deli muttering curses. "I got a parking ticket," he said, slapping the yellow slip on my desk. Mia had one too. So did Tanya. In total, 5 tickets had been handed out. I sighed. "I'll reimburse everyone," I said reluctantly, knowing full well it would cost me over $200 I hadn't budgeted for. "Just give me the stubs." "Dude, seriously," Jason muttered. "Let's just call a tow truck and haul these bastards out." "We'll give them one more day," I said, more to convince myself than anyone else. Maybe they didn't realize, but I was already starting to think about city codes, about liability, about how far I'd need to go if this continued. Tuesday morning, I came in early, coffee in hand, ready to see improvement. Instead, the situation had escalated. Not 3, not 5, but 7 Pinecrest Gardens vehicles filled the lot. Every space was taken again, including my own. My notes from the previous day, crumpled and discarded near the curb like garbage. One windshield had a particularly galling note scrawled in Sharpie. Greater than the HOA said this is okay. I stared at the paper for a long moment, stunned at the sheer arrogance. I wasn't just annoyed. Now I was furious. I called Evergreen again, but Doug was in a meeting. So I decided to go straight to the source. Pinecrest Gardens looked like a private club. Gated, pristine, soulless. The kind of place where nobody waved but everyone watched. The security guard wouldn't let me in without an appointment. I explained the situation, and he reluctantly gave me a business card with a number. Margaret Wilson, HOA president. I called. "This is Margaret," she answered, her tone clipped. I introduced myself. "Your residents are taking over my business." "Parking lot." She gave an audible sigh. "I'm in meetings all day. Can this wait?" "No," I said firmly. "Your residents are interfering with my business." "We had clients cancel yesterday." She sighed again, heavily. "Fine. I can give you 10 minutes at 3:30. Community Clubhouse." I spent the next several hours gathering documentation deeds, municipal parking code references, building maps, everything I could use to prove I owned the lot exclusively. I wasn't going in blind. At 3:25, I walked into the clubhouse. Margaret Wilson looked exactly how I'd imagined. Bleach blonde bob, sleek designer blazer, thick-rimmed glasses perched at the edge of a Botox-stiffened forehead. She gestured toward the chair across from her at a glossy mahogany desk. "I understand there's some confusion about parking," she began, the patronizing smile already curling her lips. "There's no confusion," I said. "Your residents are parking on my private lot without permission. We're in the middle of a repaving project," she said. "Our community has 78 homes. There's nowhere for visitors to go." "That's a planning failure on your part, not mine." Margaret leaned forward. "Surely you can accommodate a few extra cars. You don't use all the spaces." I narrowed my eyes. "How would you know that?" "We've been observing," she said casually, sipping water from a crystal glass. "Just temporarily." My skin crawled. Define temporary. 3 weeks. That's how long the contractor estimates. Absolutely not. "We're neighbors," she said sweetly. "Let's not start a feud over something as trivial as a few parking spots." I took a deep breath. "I'll give you 5 spaces for 1 week." "That's generous, all things considered." Her eyes lit up like she'd won a poker hand. "I appreciate your flexibility. I'll communicate that to the residents. And I'll mark them clearly," I added, "with signs." "Oh, of course," she said, standing. "We value good neighborly relationships." But I had a sinking feeling she had no intention of honoring anything we'd agreed on. One arrived early on Wednesday, determined to reclaim some control. The 5 spots I'd marked with cones and printed signs clearly labeled. "Temporary use only, HOA parking ends in 7 days," were not only ignored, but surrounded by 10 other unauthorized cars. In total, 15 vehicles. One sat squarely in my owner-reserved space. Tanya arrived next. Her jaw clenched as she tried and failed to squeeze into the narrow alley behind the building. Jason and Mia parked illegally across the street. Clients had already started texting cancellations due to lack of parking again. It was as if my agreement had meant nothing. One sign had a coffee cup smashed against it. Another had "Screw you" written across it in red marker. I was done playing nice. I stepped outside, took a breath of stale city air, and dialed Margaret Wilson. She picked up on the second ring. "Margaret, we had an agreement," I began without greeting. 5 spaces, 1 week. Today there are 15 cars with Pinecrest stickers in my lot, including my personal reserved spot. "Perhaps some residents misunderstood," she said smoothly, like a librarian correcting a late return. I sent a memo. 15 cars is not a misunderstanding. It's a violation. I'm currently hosting the garden committee, she replied. Can we discuss this later? No, I snapped. You're disrupting my business. We've had 4 client cancellations this morning. My employees are scattered around town trying to find parking. There was a pause. Her voice sharpened. You're overreacting. It's just parking. These are your neighbors, not criminals. It's not just parking when it affects my company's operations. She sighed, then lowered her tone into something darker. Well, technically, you may not have legal standing. The previous owner granted us occasional use of that lot years ago. My blood chilled. That's the second time you've claimed that. Show me the agreement. I'll have our secretary scan it. She's in tomorrow. In the meantime, I need those vehicles gone immediately. I'd advise against any drastic action, she said, her voice sliding into that patronizing threat tone I'd come to hate. Try to be neighborly, or you might regret it. The line went dead back inside. Tanya handed me a stack of papers. Client appointments, these are all the ones who canceled this week, she said. 4 today, 2 yesterday, and 5 moved to next week. We can't keep going like this. I stared at the papers. This wasn't just a parking issue anymore. It was an existential threat to my business. I stood and clapped my hands loudly. All right, remote work starting today. Everyone, go home. We'll keep all meetings virtual until further notice. The office emptied quickly. Frustrated but relieved staff trickled out, waving to me silently as they passed. I sat back down, opened my laptop, and started digging. If Margaret wanted. To play the long game, I'd show her how real professionals handle disputes with facts, records, and cold, hard evidence. The county records office wasn't far, and I was there by 2 p.m. that afternoon. I met with a clerk named Helen, who looked about 70 and sharp as a tack. She guided me through the database. We searched every property record linked to my building zoning history, historical ownership, deed restrictions, even scanned handwritten notes from the 90s. Nothing. No mention of any parking easement. No mention of Pinecrest Gardens. Number. References to Margaret Wilson or any HOA. I asked Helen, could something like this exist off record? She squinted at me. Not if it affects land use or cross-property privileges. It would be here. That was all I needed to hear. Just to be sure, I called the previous owner, Mr. Sanderson. He now lived in Florida and sounded amused when I explained. What was happening? Margaret tried that stunt with me once, he said. Wanted me to sign an easement for overflow parking. I refused. There was never an agreement. She's claiming otherwise. She's bluffing. And even if I had agreed, it wouldn't transfer unless it was in writing and recorded. Trust me, kid, you've got the upper hand. I called 3 towing companies. The first 2 refused to touch anything involving an HOA dispute. The third, Falcon Recovery, agreed, with one condition: you need clear signage up for 24 hours. Before we tow. We'll install them for you tonight if you want. I want. They showed up at 9 p.m. with 6 bold red and white metal signs. Private property Zeiss design parking. Only. Unauthorized vehicles will be towed at owner's expense. Enforced by Falcon Recovery. Signs were bolted to the fence, mounted by the lot entrance, and zip-tied to 2 lampposts. They even gave me a stack of photographed proofs for legal backup. At midnight, I composed one last email to Margaret, greater than subject. Enforcement notice, Margaret. I have verified with both the county records office and the previous owner that there is no legal agreement between your HOA and my property. Effective Wednesday morning. Any unauthorized vehicles in our lot will be towed at the owner's expense. Please inform your residents immediately. Regards. James Reed, owner, XYZ Design 20. Minutes later, my phone rang. Margaret's voice was venomous. You're making a serious mistake. Produce the document, Margaret, I said coldly. If it exists, you're being hostile. My residents are furious. You're hurting the community. No, I'm enforcing my rights. You lied to your residents. That's on you. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. I'm on the City Planning Commission. Making enemies with me could complicate your business future. There it was. The threat. I let the silence sit for a beat. Are you threatening me? I asked calmly. Because if you are, I'll be forced to report this conversation to the City Ethics Committee. Silence. You've declared war on the wrong person, she finally snapped. Expect to hear from our attorney. Click. I sat back in my chair and stared at the glow of the monitors. It was on. I barely slept. The threat Margaret had made about her seat on the City Planning Commission kept looping in my head like a ticking metronome. She was bluffing. She had to be. Still, as a small business owner in a district where permits and renewals depended on smooth bureaucratic sailing, her words weren't idle noise. I knew how much damage a grudge could cause. I arrived at 6:45 a.m. on Wednesday and parked down the street, coffee in hand, nerves high. Falcon Recovery had dispatched 3 tow trucks, each waiting discreetly in nearby alleys and side streets. We'd timed it down to the minute. At 7:52 a.m., a maroon SUV with Pinecrest Gardens tags rolled in and slid into my assistant's spot. A moment later, a black Honda took Jason's. One by one, the parade arrived, 12 cars in total. The lot was full again by 8:30. I gave the signal. At 9 a.m. sharp, Falcon moved in like a precision strike team. With cameras on their dashboards, they rolled silently into the lot and got to work. The sound of metal lifting tires and winches, cranking echoed off the brick buildings like justice in surround sound. It was beautiful. By 9:45, the lot was empty, clean, restored. 10 minutes later, my team rolled in. For the first time in a week, every employee had a place to park. For the first time in days, I saw them smiling. I sat in my office with the blinds partially open, watching the neighborhood buzz around the cleanup. My phone started vibrating. And vibrating. And vibrating. Calls, voicemails, emails, dozens in the span of an hour. Every one of them from angry Pinecrest residents, Evergreen Property Management, or of course Margaret Wilson. I didn't answer a single one. At exactly 10:07 a.m., Margaret's Escalade screeched into the freshly cleared lot. She braked hard, swung open the door, and marched straight into my building. She's here," Tanya said through the intercom, her voice tight. "Send her in." The door slammed open so hard it bounced off the stopper. Margaret stormed in, her face a cocktail of rage, disbelief, and theatrical indignation. "You had no right," she shouted, pointing a trembling manicured finger. "You have no idea what you've done." I leaned back in my chair calmly. "Please sit down." "I will not sit down." "You towed doctors, teachers, parents. One of our residents missed her chemo appointment because of you." My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice even. "That's unfortunate, but not my responsibility. You misled your residents into believing they had permission to park on private property. They didn't." "You're heartless," she spat. I held up a folder. "Here's a copy of the county records. Here's a written statement from the previous owner. No easement, no agreement, no record of permission." "You lied, Margaret." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "And unless you produce a legal document showing otherwise, the case is closed." Her voice dropped into a hiss. "You're making enemies where you don't need to. I'm on multiple boards. I have influence. The City Planning Commission, the Historic Zoning Board, and I have legal documentation and a recording of you threatening me." I cut in. That stopped her cold. I continued. "That call was recorded, And so is this conversation." She froze. For a long moment, her lips twitched, searching for a countermove that didn't exist. "You'll regret this," she whispered, then turned and stormed out. For the rest of the day, the drama rippled through the neighborhood like a live wire in a puddle. Dozens of Pinecrest residents emailed, demanding I honor the community's tradition. Others accused me of cruelty, arrogance, and claimed I was undermining neighborhood trust. I sent one single reply to all of them, "Greater than I sympathize with your frustration. However, I have confirmed with both county records and the previous property owner that no such agreement exists. Your HOA president authorized use of my property without permission. That is the root of this issue. Please make alternate parking arrangements. Unauthorized vehicles will continue to be towed at owner's expense." That night, the HOA Facebook group screenshots started making the rounds, neighbors fighting among themselves, many of them turning on Margaret. Some had to pay over $400 to retrieve their cars. Others had appointments delayed, jobs missed, kids left waiting at school. The common theme in their rants? Margaret said it was fine. She promised she had permission. Why didn't she check the records? Why is she always acting like she owns the neighborhood? The tide was turning. The next day, I received a very different email from Evergreen Property Management. Subject: Request for documentation, Mr. Reed. Please forward a copy of the towing contract and signage verification for our records. We would like to clarify expectations with Pinecrest Gardens residents. Thank you for your cooperation. Doug R. Evergreen Property Management. No more excuses. No more fake easements. Just quiet retreat. Then came the cherry on top, a tip from one of my clients, an attorney who lived 2 blocks over. He emailed me a PDF. It was the Pinecrest HOAS agenda for their upcoming emergency board meeting. One item stood out, greater than agenda item number 4, formal inquiry regarding parking incident and potential leadership. Misconduct. Margaret was being investigated by her own HOA board. The parking stunt had cost her more than just some angry phone calls. It had cost her credibility. Residents were now asking what else she had lied about and why she had risked legal liability without a single document to back her claims. 2 weeks passed. Pinecrest Gardens completed their repaving ahead of schedule. No one from the HOA ever contacted me again. No lawsuit was filed. No city agencies knocked on my door, but my parking lot stayed peaceful. The red and white tow warning signs remained bolted up. I also installed a small but very visible camera overlooking the lot, just in case. Staff morale returned to normal. Clients stopped canceling. Revenue stabilized. And I stopped feeding meters like a broke college student. Every once in a while, I'd see Margaret driving past in her Escalade, her face unreadable behind tinted windows. She never stopped. Never waved. Eventually, the Pinecrest Gardens board voted to remove her as president. Word spread quickly. Apparently, she had tried to bully a local business owner one time too many. Epilogue. Lessons from the lot. If there's anything I learned from this whole ordeal, it's this. Document everything. Never assume someone's authority equals legality, and never let fear of conflict keep you from standing up for your property. One no parking sign exposed a corrupt HOA president, restored control to a struggling business, and reminded an entire neighborhood that not even Margaret Wilson is above the law. They thought it was just about parking. But for me, it was about boundaries and the people who cross them without asking. Not anymore.